The following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Even by ABNY standards, this is a very, very big day for us, and for the city, and for the state, and our country. Access to reliable and robust transportation infrastructure is critical to the success of our New York's economy. It's how we sustain our growth and diversify our economic vitality. For too long, we've neglected our infrastructure because the important projects take too long and cost too much. But we can no longer afford delays. Governor Andrew Cuomo believes strongly in our need to invest in our state's transportation infrastructure. Under his leadership, New York is making progress on some of the most challenging projects of our time. The governor is taking on tough challenges and turning it into opportunities for growth and improvement. We are seeing it with the new Tappan Zee Bridge, where the state is utilizing design-build procurement to benefit all taxpayers. Today, the bridge is literally rising from the Hudson after the governor jump-started the project in 2012. We're also seeing his strong leadership in the commitment to rebuild and harden our infrastructure in New York City and Long Island after the devastating storm of Hurricane Sandy. And we're seeing it again today with a plan to fundamentally reimagine LaGuardia Airport to meet the needs of the 21st century. At ABNY, we've worked with many leaders with many plans to make New York a better place to live, work, and visit. Governor Cuomo's plan for the new LaGuardia is as innovative and as exciting as we've ever seen. At a time when government has generally been associated with gridlock, and when our infrastructure needs are growing literally every day, it is refreshing to see New York rise to the occasion with a plan that will show tremendous results. Thank you for being here to listen to this exciting new plan. Please join me in welcoming our governor, who is leading the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Grew up in an Italian household and very comfortable with people eating and talking at the same time, actually. First to Bill Rudin and ABNY, who has done a phenomenal job as a convener, as a place of discussion, as a leader for this city and state at very difficult times. Let's give him a round of applause. Bill Rudin. Excited about what we're announcing today, and I'm so excited that the Vice President is here with us to do it. The Vice President has been a friend of mine for a long time. When I was HUD Secretary, we did a lot of work together all over this country. We did work in his home district. The Vice President has always been a disciple of capital construction, investment in that beautiful word, infrastructure, and always been an advocate for investing in the facilities of tomorrow and putting that together with workforce development. And those are the two keys to making this economy work. And he's been talking about it for many, many years. And I've sat in many audiences and I've listened to the Vice President and I said, he's right. He's right. Why doesn't anyone do that? And now I'm governor. And you know what? I'm the person who's supposed to do that. So you know what? We're going to do that. Because the Vice President is right. The Vice President and his team, or many of his team are friends of mine, they have been the go-to facilitator, let's say, for anything we needed federal. A project like an airport project requires a lot of federal approvals, as you can imagine. Not to say that the federal government isn't always a pleasure to deal with, because it is. Really, no, I love it. So when I have nothing to do, sometimes I deal with the federal government just because I can. But whenever we needed anything done, the approvals for this project, expediting the approvals for this project, it was done mostly by the help of the Vice President's office, and I'd like to give him and his team a round of applause and thank him for that. We are going to talk about airports today primarily, but in general, the larger conversation that the Vice President has always been advocating, which is building a society that is economically potent for the next generation. And New York makes this case probably better than any place in the United States, because New York's greatness was driven by its ability to dream big and to build bigger. Our growth was always a function of ambition meeting intelligence with that New York attitude that just wouldn't take no for an answer. That New York positivism and belief in itself, that there's no challenge that we can't rise to. We did the impossible, and then we did it again and again. The tallest buildings, longest bridges. There's nothing that we couldn't do. We were New York. That spirit was then institutionalized in the creation of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey in 1921. That was the first national movement towards a regional governmental organization that put together the transportation system's connections to the economy. At that time, state and city governments were also aggressive and optimistic. And the product of all of this was that they built and they built and they built. And when you look at the array of things, just the Port Authority was built. It is breathtaking. 1921, 1928 Outer Bridge, 1930 they come back with the Holland Tunnel, Bayonne Bridge, George Washington Bridge, 1931. That was the attitude, and we executed and we performed. Somewhere along the way, we lost our momentum. And the we is New York, but the we is also countrywide in many cases. We lost our momentum, and you saw other places capitalize with that kind of innovation that New York was all about. China is doing maglev trains. South Korea, state-of-the-art airports. Airports so beautiful you could almost travel just to see the airport itself. Dubai, an amazing airport complex, really redefining what that experience and what a state-of-the-art entranceway is all about. And when you look at that growth and compare it with where we are today, we have outdated airports, rails, bridges that desperately need repair. And somewhere along the way, we lost the connection between transportation and economic growth. I was with the Vice President this morning in Rochester, and he was talking about where the roads lead, where the fiber optic lies. That's where the economy grows. We've learned that lesson. We have to relearn it now. And for New York, it is time to move, because all the planning and all the talking is nice. But if you're not acting, if you are not accomplishing, and you are not performing, you are doing nothing. You are standing still. And the obligation and the job of government is, you know what? To get something done. Not to talk about getting something done, not to advocate what should be done, but to actually do it. We upset the choir with that. So it's time to move, and we are reimagining our ports, our rail, our roads, our technology, and our airports. We're going to talk about airports today, but a minute on rail, because we have Chairman Tom Prendergast here. The connective tissue for the metropolitan area is all the MTA, right? Suburban, suburbs, New York City, that's all the MTA. The MTA, in my opinion, was underfunded for a long period of time. And the MTA has come up with an intelligent capital plan that we've been discussing over the past few weeks. Originally, the capital plan was about $30 billion. We asked the MTA to look at design build. As you heard from Bill Rudin, we used that on the Tappan Zee Bridge, and we saved billions of dollars, literally, on the Tappan Zee Bridge. The MTA is applying design build to their budget. The budget went from about $29 billion to about $26 billion. We asked the MTA to make sure there are no additional fare increases besides the scheduled fare increases. That left a gap of about $11 billion. Last week, Chairman Prendergast sent me a very lovely note saying of the $11 billion, he thinks the state should contribute $8.3 billion, and that should be the state's fair share. I've said privately, today I say publicly, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. The state will fund the $8.3 billion. We'll put it in the budget next year. We have the most robust road reconstruction program going on now, and it's been more robust than any plan in the past 30 years. Technology, this state has the commitment to be the first fully wired state with high-speed broadband from every corner of this state, and we want to be the first state in the nation to get that done. We're going to talk about our airports and the connectivity. There are basically 4 airports in the regional area. Let's start with Stewart Airport, which is north of New York City, Newburgh, New York, about 60 miles from New York City. Stewart is 2,400 acres and has the second longest runway in New York State. They have much more capacity than they are now using. They have capacity to take commercial flights that are overbooking in JFK and LaGuardia and bring them to Newark. They also have the capacity to take a lot of the cargo that is now going to JFK and have that cargo delivered to Stewart. If you are shipping goods that are not ending in New York City, it makes very little sense to fly them into JFK, send a truck into JFK to pick them up, and then move them from there. Stewart Airport would be a natural for that kind of truck traffic. It's right at the intersections of 84 and 87, so the transportation access is much better. To facilitate the growth of Stewart, we are coordinating in terms of flights with JFK and LaGuardia, but we're going to make Stewart what we call a New York free trade zone. We're going to take Stewart Airport and make it a startup New York zone, which is a tax-free zone for 10 years, which makes that the least expensive place in the United States to site a new business. Not a state that has no income tax. Because if they have no income tax, they have some other tax, value-added tax, property tax. These are 100% tax-free zones. People think about New York, they say high taxes? No. Startup zones, the lowest taxes for business in the United States. We're going to put the startup zone together with the airport as a free trade zone, and then to get flights and cargo to move to Stewart Airport. Secondly, JFK. We're on our way to restoring the majesty of the JFK Airport. We're going to design a master plan for JFK that has a unified version for the current disparate terminals that have developed over the years. The master plan will be done within 12 months. In addition to a master plan project, we're announcing a historic renovation where JFK's award-winning Saarinen building is going to be constructed into a new state-of-the-art hotel, 500 guests, 40,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet of observation deck. The hotel will create more than 3,700 jobs. Agreements are already in place with the Hotel Trades Council and the Building Trades Council. Construction is set to begin next year, and the hotel will open in 2018. Republic Airport is on Long Island. It's currently an underused facility. And today we are announcing a request for information for Republic Airport for private sector management and development. It has been sitting, it is underutilized. We're going to make it also a New York free trade zone with the startup tax credit. We're looking for private sector partners to come in, run the airport, take the space that adjoins the airport, and develop it as a free trade zone. We're doing all of this simultaneously.
Keep going.
But most of all, we're focusing on LaGuardia. LaGuardia Airport is located in the great borough of the Queens. I'd also like to mention that Congressman Joe Crowley has been a fierce advocate for LaGuardia for many years. He's my Queens homeboy. Let's give him a round of applause. Congressman Joe Crowley. LaGuardia started in 1937. Mayor LaGuardia took a flight. He refused to get off the plane because the plane ticket said New York. But the flight landed in Newark. Sort of like our sports teams now, as a matter of fact. And he refused to get off the plane, saying he was supposed to land in New York. As he had reporters on the plane, he had them land at Floyd Bennett Field to make the point that New York should have its own airport. You shouldn't have to fly into Newark. Within a decade of opening, in 1939, LaGuardia became the busiest airport in the world. Ironically, 50 years later, the Newark airport is still bigger and busier than LaGuardia Airport. LaGuardia is un-New York. This is a new phrase. You've heard the phrase un-American? Well, I'm starting to phrase it is un-New York. LaGuardia is slow, it's dated, it is a terrible front door entranceway to New York. It is a lost opportunity. It is almost universally decried as a poor representation of an airport, let alone a New York airport. You talk to people who went through LaGuardia, you hear all sorts of things. I actually heard someone say that if he were blindfolded and he landed in LaGuardia, he would have thought he was in a third world nation. Now, I don't remember who said it, but it was a strong, some would say prophetic vision, which I believe in many ways was an impetus to say to New York, get up, move, this is unacceptable, and it's unacceptable for New York. It came from a man who speaks the truth and speaks his mind, and that is a beautiful thing in life. It's a truly special thing in politics. Let's give the Vice President another round of applause. Last year, I reached an agreement with Governor Christie to allow each state discretion in managing their airports. The airports are all run by the Port Authority, but we have an agreement where each mayor will have discretion on running the airports in his city. In the past, the strategy by the Port Authority had been a piecemeal rehabilitation strategy, but the goal is not really to repair and rebuild a 1939 airport, right? We want an airport that is a state-of-the-art facility. We want a globally renowned airport for the next century that is worthy of the name New York and what we're doing. We appointed an advisory panel led by Dan Tishman to work with the Port Authority to reimagine LaGuardia. There is a very attractive picture of Dan Tishman, actually. before he served on the advisory committee. He looks somewhat more weathered now, as you will see shortly. The goals for the advisory panel were threefold. Number one, replace the old complex with a modern, unified, world-class airport. Now, this was easier said than done, because LaGuardia had become a series of ad hoc terminals. You had Terminal A, which is the Marine Air Terminal, which is off on one side. You then had Terminal B. You then had Terminal C and Terminal D. There was no airport per se. There were a series of disconnected terminals that were running. To make it even more complicated, two of the terminals, C and D, were Delta terminals, which means they were owned separately and controlled by Delta. So you now had this division of ownership and this division of authority. Our vision was for a unified terminal, like the state-of-the-art terminals around the globe, and we had to overcome those four disparate terminals to do that. Second goal was to improve flights by opening more open space for flight operations. Now, as Bill mentioned, LaGuardia is a relatively small airport, so you didn't have a lot of options of acquiring additional space, so you needed to reconfigure the additional space. Third, we wanted to connect LaGuardia with mass transportation, including ferry and rail service, so it wouldn't always be a car ride to the airport. That would be the venue of the past. We wanted the venue of the future. We had three pressing obstacles to deal with. First, the Port Authority was already underway in planning a replacement of Terminal B only. Second, the Delta terminals are disconnected and they're privately leased. So really, the Port Authority has no power over Delta and can only develop what they can develop, but without Delta, you can never get to a unified terminal. Third, LaGuardia is landlocked, so finding more flight operation space was a challenge. The advisory board and the Port Authority, in a relatively short time, literally just a matter of months actually, came up with a very ambitious plan. They presented a master plan for a new airport that doesn't rehabilitate but replaces the airport in its entirety. Basically, what they said was, there is no way to fix this. We need to literally tear it down and rebuild it. It comes up with more flight operating space, which is key for LaGuardia, because that's what's been causing a lot of the delays and a lot of the limitation. It has world-class retail and hotel complex, state-of-the-art new post-9/11 security protocols, the first airport being built since 9/11. So it will incorporate in the design the new security protocols. It will also have train and ferry access. The new airport eliminates the isolated terminals, builds one unified terminal. It moves the entire footprint 600 feet closer to the Grand Central Parkway. That creates 240% more space for flight operations, which will be transformative for the LaGuardia Airport. It also will have a rail link in the future connecting at Willets Point, where the MTA offers train service, and will make a connection from Willets Point to the airport to an air train system. It will also have high-speed ferry access from what is currently the Marine Air Terminal. Best of all, it's not a plan, it's not a sketch, it's not a dream, it's not a vision, it is actually happening. The Port Authority passed a resolution initiating a public-private sector partnership to build the first portion of the new airport. The cost of the Port Authority is $4 billion. More than 50% of that cost is going to be privately funded. It will break ground next year, believe it or not, thanks to getting all the approvals done in time, with new facilities approximately 39 months, with all construction completed approximately 18 months thereafter. And Delta has agreed to be a full partner in the new airport, and that is the only way that we've gotten to this new design. Just in construction, 8,000 construction-related new jobs. Congratulations to the Port Authority and Governor Christie, Chairman John Degnan, who walked in, had a lot of things going on at the Port Authority, but took the time to make this a priority. Let's give him a round of applause and thank him for his help. I want to thank the entire board, especially Scott Reckler, who is the vice chairman, who's done a great job for us. Pat Foy, the executive director, who's going to implement this and has been implementing it and has really performed a great job. And I want to thank my special counsel to the governor, and I'm very big on delegation, so I sort of just took this task and said, here, Rick, you do this. And lo and behold, he did. Rick Cotton, thank you very much. Delta Airlines, this does not happen without Delta. If Delta does not agree to cooperate with this new terminal and does not agree to be part of this new development, this doesn't happen. Delta has been a great citizen to this state, a great corporate citizen, and Delta has stepped up to the plate in a big way. They will cooperate, will build simultaneously, will be in parallel. They didn't have to do that. Because of that, New York is going to get a new airport. Ed Bastian, thank you very much for your cooperation and your help. And I want to thank you to our federal partners. I would go through the list of all the federal approvals that we needed to do this, but it would be like reading the alphabet backwards 57 times. We had approvals that normally take years, expedited by the Vice President's office, and that's the only way we've made this much progress this quickly and that we're meeting this time frame, so we want to thank them. I want to thank all of them together. Because working together, New York will once again lead the way in infrastructure development. Last year, our project, the new Tappan Zee Bridge, was the cover of the President's annual budget. It has become a national model, the speed and intelligence with which we are replacing the Tappan Zee Bridge with design-build legislation, so it was highlighted as a national model. And now New York will have the newest major airport in the United States. Just think of that. And we're going to go from this, the old LaGuardia, and all the complaints, and all the years that we endured it, to this. Welcome to New York's new LaGuardia Airport. This is what New York deserves, and it has deserved for a long time, and now we're going to get it. And this is just a metaphor for what we can do when we work together and we have the ambition and optimism and energy that made New York, New York in the first place. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for your gracious introduction to the new LaGuardia. And I want to thank you and compliment you for your wonderful staff of airbrush professionals for making me look so good in that slide. Thank you, Bill and Abney, for hosting this very special event. It was more than 6 months ago when the governor asked me to serve as the chair of the Airport Advisory Panel to advise him and the Port Authority on modernizing LaGuardia and JFK. I was fortunate to be joined on the panel by 6 individuals with a broad breadth of experience in their respective fields. Amanda Burden, the former Commissioner of City Planning, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. Tony Collins, the president of Clarkson University of Potsdam, New York. Jose Gomez Ibanez, professor of urban planning and public policy at Harvard University. The Queensborough president, the Honorable Melinda Katz. Jackie Snyder, the Special Advisor for Infrastructure for the State of New York and the former head of the city's Design Commission, and John Zaccotti, the co-chairman of Brookfield Office Properties and chairman of the board of Brookfield Financials. I want to thank you all for the hours and hours you put into this remarkable effort. The panel took a deep dive into LaGuardia's condition. We reviewed the submissions to the governor's master plan design competition, choosing 3 finalists and pulling the most innovative ideas from them all. We concluded the airport is in the condition that we see today largely due to sporadic, piecemeal development over the past 50 years, and desperately required the bold approach that the governor has asked us to develop. In the end, we put together a vision and a plan for LaGuardia that brings the airport to the 21st century while serving as a good neighbor to the people of Queens. But more importantly, over the last 2 months, this plan has developed tremendous momentum. The great challenge I faced in building large public projects over my career is to get the government to move. Such was the case with the World Trade Center. But this project is the exact opposite. With this project, government is now moving faster than it has ever moved, and with the support of Governor Cuomo, I'm confident that a 21st century LaGuardia Airport is on its way. Now I'd like to play a brief video that will describe our plan to deliver a 21st century airport to the state of New York and the region.
Dirty, cramped, hot, delayed.
The seating area is pretty small.
It makes you think twice about flying in and out of LaGuardia.
This is my first trip to LaGuardia and probably my last.
It's no surprise, LaGuardia has its issues.
A famous person once said, and I quote, "If I blindfolded you and took you to LaGuardia Airport in New York, you would think I must be in some third world country." Now, who do you think said that?
The airport was built decades ago, and back then it was state-of-the-art. Now, not so much. Imagine squeezing 13 million people into one terminal that's meant to handle 8 million people.
I took my first airplane flight in 1955 on Mohawk Airlines right out of LaGuardia. The world has changed since 1955, but LaGuardia hasn't.
If the city wants to continue to be a great city, it's got to have great airports.
And it's not just about getting from here to there. It's about jobs and about the economy.
Every year, LaGuardia contributes more than $16 billion in economic activity to the region, generating about 121,000 total jobs and $5.9 billion in annual wages.
So that's why Governor Cuomo came to us with a mission. Create a 21st century LaGuardia Airport on a par with the best in the world. Create an airport of tomorrow, utilizing the most advanced technology, improve public transportation to the airport, reduce delays, and do this while at the same time being a good neighbor to the people of Queens. The panel embraced the governor's challenge and developed specific recommendations. First and foremost, stop piecemeal development. Create an entirely new facility. Build a new, single, unified terminal running adjacent to the Grand Central Parkway. Ensure top-of-the-line shopping and dining, and add business meeting facilities. There is the capacity to build a hotel on site of approximately 200 rooms. The terminal should have an appealing and welcoming central arrivals and departures hall in addition to entrances for individual airlines. It should be an architecturally significant public space. The runway configuration will remain the same, avoiding lengthy delays from the studies and approvals that would be necessary if the runways moved. One of the most important changes is the movement of all the terminal buildings, approximately 600 feet closer to the Grand Central Parkway. This change will create nearly 2 miles of additional space for aircraft taxiways, enabling vastly improved plane movement, which will reduce LaGuardia's infamous gate delays. New parking garages should be seamlessly incorporated into the new facility. The panel endorses the governor's call for improved public transportation access to the airport. This includes an AirTrain system to connect the airport to Willets Point and should enable access to the Marine Air Terminal. The panel also recommends a new high-speed ferry service to the airport. The Marine Air Terminal, which is a historic landmark, should continue its role of serving 1 million passengers a year. The panel also calls for an on-site automated tram to move passengers more quickly within the terminal. So what are the next steps? The panel presented its vision to the Port Authority Board earlier this year. In May, the board endorsed moving forward with a $4 billion public-private partnership that will build the western half of the new unified terminal. The consortium that will build and operate this portion of the airport includes the best of the best: Vantage Airport Group, Skanska, Walsh Construction, Meridian, HOK, Parsons Brinckerhoff. Within the last few weeks, I presented the panel's vision to Delta. Delta has embraced our recommendations. It is committed to redevelop its terminals at the eastern end of the airport and work with us to complete the panel's vision of a single unified terminal. Actual construction by the consortium of its part of the new unified terminal is slated to begin in the first part of 2016, following final approval by the Port Authority Board. Most of their projects should be open to passengers in a little over 3 years from the start of construction, with full completion within 18 months after that. Delta has declared its desire to move forward with construction on a parallel track. The airport will continue to operate during construction. An estimated 8,000 jobs will be created by the public-private partnership, and even more when you include Delta's project. One last point. I've worked with dozens of states and local governments. This is the first time I have ever had to say to my government partners, slow down. On behalf of the advisory panel, I want to thank the Port Authority and the Port Chairman for working with us so professionally. And I want to thank the Governor for his leadership and support. For me, this has been an engaging and rewarding experience. This is our vision. This is Governor Cuomo's vision. This is reimagining New York.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a leader who truly understands the importance of a robust infrastructure to keep New York and our nation strong and economically vital. Since his years in the Senate, he has been passionate about the need to create a modern infrastructure. A tireless advocate for greater funding for our highways, railroads, and airports. Please join me in welcoming the 47th Vice President of the United States of America, Vice President Joe Biden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please, thank you very much. Bill and Dan, great job. And Gov, I wish everything I said that was truthful but controversial would turn out this way. I should have spoken to you about a tunnel before this all happened. I pointed out that, you know, the tunnels going underneath, there's a river around here somewhere, and that were built in the late 1800s, and they haven't been modernized since 1927. Maybe you get started on that. I'd ask Governor Christie to come back and talk about it, but that's another issue for another day. Folks, look. The governor said this is one of the times he enjoyed working with the federal. He always enjoyed working with the federal government. I think Dan was more honest. This is one of the few times he enjoyed working with the federal government. You know, there's an old expression when you are. I served in the Senate for a long, long time, and if you wanted to get a laugh at a town meeting,
back in your home state, you'd start off by saying, I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help you. But the truth of the matter is that one of the things the president has been passionate about from the outset is cutting the red tape that the federal government throws up in the way of getting an awful lot done. The Tappan Zee Bridge was one of those things we were able to move on, and he cared very much about this project as well. I understand Mayor Dinkins is here, former Mayor Dinkins. It's great to see you. We campaigned together. And Jojo Crawley, I know I caused you, as my Italian wife's family would say, a lot of agita in my comments about LaGuardia, but you stepped up and you did everything that had to be done. And I understand Carolyn Maloney is here, and Sean Patrick Maloney, and others, members of the state legislature. Thanks for stepping up, New York City elected officials, and my buddies in the union movement, the AFL-CIO, the building trades, hotel trades, SEIU, Port Authority, firefighters, New York's bravest, I might add. You all played a big role in getting to this place, but no one more than the governor. I was saying up in Rochester today, you know, nobody out there thinks things matter unless you think big. You've got a governor, maybe the biggest governor in the country, who thinks big and thought big on this project. I don't think, Governor, this would have ever come to fruition had you not decided you're going to think big and think outside the box. Congratulations to you. The architect, Daniel Burnham, said, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood. Well, the thing about the governor is he has, I admire about him, is there's no little plans. You always think big, but in my view, as coming from Delaware and before that from Pennsylvania, everything associated with New York, and I mean this sincerely, outside of New York is about thinking big. You know, Governor, I watched your response to Superstorm Sandy when it struck. You didn't just build back, you built better. Working with the administration, you rethought, you renewed, you reinvested the Empire State's infrastructure, laying a whole groundwork for a resilient communities and a growing economy. You built tunnels, bridges, roads with newer, stronger, more efficient designs and high speed to flow people and commerce. You replaced the damaged power grids with modern reinforced designs on higher ground. You roll out a plan to create, you know, microgrids to reduce vulnerability. And one of the things I'm going to be coming back and talking to you all about is the need for us to invest in our energy infrastructure throughout the United States of America. These superstorms are going to continue. They're not going to go away. And much of our energy infrastructure is at sea level. We're all through the Southwest and along the Gulf and in California. There's so much to be done, but so much opportunity. So it came as no surprise to me to learn that when others proposed piecemeal's approach to fixing LaGuardia, Governor, you demanded a complete plan, a complete vision, a complete airport, worthy of what really is, I get in trouble for saying this, no apology. This is the greatest city in the world. This is truly, it's true. That's not hyperbole. It's the greatest city in the world, and it requires a 21st century infrastructure. As has been pointed out many times here, I've gotten a little bit of trouble with my remarks about the airport, but what didn't get picked up is what I also said, is the airport has a first-class workforce, and they deserve a first-class facility to serve customers who count on them. A few weeks after I made the remark, I was introducing the governor. We flew down in Air Force Two to my Air Force pilots, and a few weeks afterwards, I was supposed to come to New York and engage in an event here in town. And as we took off, the Air Force Two pilots flying me said, "I'm not sure we're going to get clearance to land in LaGuardia." We knew we'd get clearance, but we weren't sure what the reception would be. And And so I went in, I came into town in about 3 hours, did the event I was doing, and headed back to the airport. And usually at the foot of Air Force 2, or like Air Force 1, are law enforcement officers who've accommodated, gone out of their way to help you and to say hi and have some photographs taken. This time, I pulled up, as we pulled up in the limo to the stairs of Air Force 2, there were no police officers. There were 8 LaGuardia employees dressed in their brown jackets with their neon strips around them, standing stone-faced at the base of the steps. And I thought, oh God, here we go. Here we go. I got out and an individual introduced himself as a union leader. I will not embarrass him and name him. They walked up to me and stepped forward and said, Mr. Vice President, we're all here to say thank you. Thank you for speaking up. Because they knew they were being held back by an outdated, overcrowded, poorly designed facility. There are 12,000 employees at LaGuardia Airport working hard every single day to accommodate the 26 million passengers. And it's unacceptable that they're out there breaking their necks every day, and still the airport is rated near the bottom of the passenger satisfaction, cleanliness, design, and delays. Because it's not about the great people who work there. It's about the hallways that don't make sense, the connections that don't connect, the wait times, the flight delays, the crowded concessions and bathrooms. This city, as I said before, deserves much better, and its future demands it. So what the governor and the Port Authority have done is completely rethink the way the airport serves the people. You've seen that here. Like every great achievement in New York architecture, it begins with limited space. That's the interesting thing about this island. Every single great piece of architecture began with limited space. You've got the bay, you've got the Grand Central Parkway, residential buildings and homes. That means LaGuardia Airport has only 680 acres to work with. The Denver International Airport, by contrast, has 33,000 acres to work with. So the footprint isn't going to grow, but the load will, with expected increases from 27 million passengers today to 34 million by 2030. Terminal B alone, passenger traffic will increase from 13.5 million to over 17 million by 2030 if things remain the same. That means you have to build smarter and maximize the available space. And that's what the plan the governor just described is going to do, starting with the new $1.3 million square foot 35-gate terminal. It will triple the security screening space from 20,000 square feet to 60,000 square feet to speed passengers to their flights. It's going to increase concession space from 70,000 to 97,000 square feet to give them more dining and shopping options in the way and much more elegant way. This first stage of the plan also includes better connection between the terminals, new airport roadway systems, new parking garages for passengers. And to increase overall efficiency of the airport, it also includes a new aeronautical ramp and a new central heating and refrigeration plant. LaGuardia contributes $16 billion in economic activity to this city, generating, as has been pointed out, 121,000 total jobs, $5.9 billion in annual wages. That's bigger than most state budgets. This new investment is expected to generate an additional 8,000 direct jobs and 18,000 total jobs in the region. Middle-class jobs, jobs you can raise a family on. And beyond the impact of construction and expansion, it's going to help grow the critical flow of commerce in and out of this city. Consider the impact on tourism alone. New York City hosted 56.4 million visitors in 2014, a record. Visitors generated $61.3 billion in overall economic impact, another record. And they supported more than 359,000 tourism-related jobs in the city. LaGuardia and JFK are economic anchors for the city, and they deserve to be the best in the world, because New York will only become bigger and more influential in the world. There's an inevitability about this. And the demand for its people, its goods and services is only going to go up. Because I know the history of the journey of this country. When America leads the world, New York leads America. That's been the story. And nothing I've seen has changed. There's great parts of the country, but nothing I've seen has changed that dynamic. As much has changed. Governor Cuomo knows how important it is to invest in our national infrastructure, as he pointed out, from rails to ports to highways. Our airport infrastructure is just as critical. What would happen to New York's economy if tourists couldn't get through the airport, or if businesses couldn't send their people to other cities? What would happen to New York's economy if the 1.3 million tons of cargo that passes through JFK alone were delayed any further than they already have? Manufacturers locate where they can get their goods to market quickly and efficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, and the most significant economic threat facing aviation in this country is air and ground congestion at major airports like LaGuardia and JFK, but particularly here. The Federal Aviation Administration estimates that the national cost of airport congestion, just the cost of congestion and delays, is $22 billion per year. And without a significant increase in our airport investments, the cost of congestion will rise to $34 billion, it's estimated, by the year 2020, and $63 billion by 2024, unless we get off the balls of our heels and start to do something like you're doing here. The U.S. transportation system moves 52 million tons of goods worth nearly $46 billion each and every day. Almost 40 tons of freight per person this year. By 2040, that's going to grow by 62%. And that's why, Governor, your plan is so important. Like the partnerships we formed in the Tiger Grants and the Recovery Act, this project's going to pull millions and billions of dollars, if others follow, off the sidelines in private investment to invest in a virtuous cycle of more efficiency, more productivity, and more good middle-class jobs. 9 out of 10 of the jobs that grow out of infrastructure investment are middle-class jobs, the kind you can raise a family on. And by the way, for me, middle class is not a number. I have a lot of very bright economists work for me. When you say middle class, they'll debate whether it's $51,400 or $52,000. Middle class is a mindset. Middle class is being able to own your own home and not have to rent it. Being able to send your kid to a park where you know they're going to come home safely. Being able to send your kid to a school, a local school, that if they do well, they can get to college. If they get to college, you can figure out a way how to get them there. In the meantime, take care of your parent when the other one dies and hope your kids never have to take care of you. That's middle class in America. And by the way, it's declining. It's declining. And these jobs matter. As my dad used to say, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your place in the community. It's about your sense of self and your self-worth. When the middle class does well, the wealthy do very well, and the poor have it way up. Because the history of the journey of this nation has been made clear that given a fighting chance, the American people have never, ever, ever let their country down. And so what this does, in addition to all what has been spoken to, it actually generates more jobs, decent jobs, decent jobs. And ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything that's going to grow this country and continue to solidify it, is a growing middle class. It's been the glue that's held this country together in terms of its political and its social stability. And this is a big part of it. But there's so much more to do. I'd like to take the governor. I travel the country all the time. I'd like to take him with me, take him everywhere, and encourage and embolden other governors to step up and do the same thing. It used to be, folks, it used to be that the only consensus that could be reached as recently as 8 to 10 years ago between Democrats and Republicans was investment in infrastructure. Thank God, governors on opposite ends of the coast, New York and California, are making these massive increases because that's the only way we're going to grow, the only way we're going to keep pace. So I say to everyone involved in this project, God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Thanks for all you're doing.
Mr. Vice President, thank you very, very much for being here and for your support on this incredible project for our city, for our state, our country, and literally the world. And as you said, New York will continue to lead the way. There's another great American leader who understands the importance of infrastructure investment, who is committed to realizing this vision for LaGuardia. I'm very pleased to introduce a message from President William Jefferson Clinton and other LaGuardia supporters.
But I think the idea that it's a comprehensive project, it's a master plan project, everything will fit together project, I think that that initiative by Governor Cuomo is very, very important here.
To say we're going to take it from being a third world airport to being one of the greatest and newest airports, that's quite a, if you think about it, it's quite a heroic vision. It's not an improvement, it's a transformation. And it's a transformation that, of course, New York needs. Just as the first LaGuardia airport took New York into the modern age of the 1930s and 40s, now we have this new airport which will take New York into the 21st century.
In our efforts to build a strong economy for America's future, one of our greatest challenges is building and rebuilding a modern infrastructure. It's important work, and doing it right takes vision, initiative, and investment. That's exactly what Governor Cuomo is showing with this remarkable plan for LaGuardia. It's the kind of thing that we have to do all over New York. 4 years ago, the labor movement, spearheaded by the teachers and the building trades, made a $10 billion commitment through the Clinton Global Initiative to help create jobs and rebuild our infrastructure. That $10 billion has now grown to $14 billion, and some of it is being spent right here at home on work at the LaGuardia Airport. I'm very happy about that. I've always thought of LaGuardia as a national treasure, especially the wonderful Art Deco Marine Air Terminal, which originally was sponsored and funded by the WPA and which is now a national landmark. America needs bold public initiatives and achievements like that now. Someday, this LaGuardia project will be a national landmark. In the meanwhile, we need it to lead us into the future. This is a reminder of what government and partners can achieve through smart planning and work. I want to commend Governor Cuomo and his administration and all of the partners who are making a world-class LaGuardia Airport a reality. You know, New York is the home of our foundation, and I'm really grateful also that CGI and our partners in the labor movement are part of this historic endeavor. Thank you, Governor, and let's get the show on the road.
Mr. Vice President, Governor, Dan, thank you very much, and thank everyone here for being a part of this historic event. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and ABNY looks forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you all for being here.